Okay, the following is a video over 12.5 notes, and this is the volume of pyramids and cones. We do want to talk about the formulas for these, first off. And the formula that we get for the volume of a pyramid, and this works for a regular pyramid or an oblique pyramid. Okay, this is an oblique. All right, and that just means that the height is not in the center, the height's kind of out to the side a little bit. What you end up having here is very similar to what you had with a prism. You take the area of the base times the height, but you multiply it by 1/3. Okay, so that is the same thing as me saying the area of the base times the height all divided by 3. Okay, so that works for anything. So you've got to determine the area of the base. Now, the area of the base, you know, if you've got a rectangular pyramid or a square pyramid, means the base of that pyramid, the bottom, is a four-sided figure, then the volume of that, and the standard one that you're going to see is 1/3 times the length times the width times the height. Okay, so that's what we've got there. Similarly, for the cones, you've got kind of the same thing. Okay, you've got volume is equal to 1/3 times the area of the base times the height, and that's the same thing as me saying the area of the base times the height all divided by 3. Okay, so since I have a cone, since the bottom is circular, okay, the area of the base is just pi r squared, so I'm going to get 1/3 times pi r squared times the height. Okay, so and the reason why it's 1/3 is that if this would fit inside of the prism with the same base and the same height, you could fit 3 of these in there. And so I'll post another video on Edmodo on kind of how all that works. But this is the formula that we're going to use. Okay, so let's take a look at the problems here real quick. Number 1, we've got a rectangular prism, or rectangular pyramid. And so my volume formula is 1/3 times the length times the width times the height. Okay, so I need to identify what all those components are. My length, I'll name that as 7 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to label that as 7 centimeters. My width, I'll label that as 4. So width is equal to 4 centimeters. And then my height of the pyramid is 8. So my height is equal to 8. Now I just need to plug these into my formula and evaluate. So I get my volume is equal to 1/3 times 7 times 4 times 8. And so if I plug all of that in to my calculator, you may want to do this. You may want to do 7 times 4 times 8 and then all divided by 3. But it's going to end up giving you 74.7 centimeters cubed. Okay, since we are dealing with volume here, that is a 3-dimensional measurement, we need to have that little 3 up there to say that we're doing cubic units. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. Now number 2 is a little bit different. Okay, this is a regular pyramid with the height comes from the very center. This is my lateral height, or my slant height. Okay, this 14 right here. And I know that this width right here is 8, but I need to find out my height here. Okay, now what I know is that this creates a right triangle on the inside here, and I know that if I have a right triangle here, this is half the distance of 8, so this is a length of 4 inches. So if I wanted to solve for h, I would need to set up the Pythagorean theorem. I have a friend. His name is Pythagoras, and he helps me find lengths of triangles. So I've got h squared plus 4 squared equals 14 squared. And so h squared is going to equal 14 squared minus 4 squared. So then h squared is going to equal, h is going to equal the square root of 14 squared minus 4 squared, which is just going to be the square root of 180. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that. That's exact. I'm going to operate with this. So my height, we're going to label that as the square root of 180. Okay, do not evaluate this and do not operate with a rounded number. If you do that, your final answer will be screwed up. Okay, so now we have our height, we have our length, and we have our width. So I can plug that into my formula for the volume, and I can just say that 1/3 times 10 times 8 times the square root of 180. Okay? And you may, in your calculator, you may want to do 10 times 8, that's just going to be 80. So if I do 10 times 8, that's 80, times the square root of 180, and then divide that by 3. And when I plug all that into the calculator, I'm going to end up getting 357.8, and our label is inches cubed, because we are dealing with a volume here, folks. So we want to make sure we do that. Okay, make sure you put the label and that we're doing cubic units. All right, let's take a look at number 3. Now, number 3 is a little bit tricky. Okay, kind of similar to what we had here. We don't know what the height is. Okay, and that's this measurement right here. That's the height. Okay, how tall is it? All right, now when it gives us this measurement here, when it says this whole thing is 14 yards, and it's pointing to this line. Now, this line goes from the very, very top down to the very, very bottom here. And this is telling me that this is a diameter. Okay, so my diameter is equal to 14 yards. Okay, so if my diameter is 14 yards, then what's my radius? Well, that's just half of my diameter, so it's 7 yards. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and label this as r is equal to 7 yards. Now, this is still a right triangle created right here. Now, if you remember, these numbers, 725, or kind of, if I see a right triangle with 7 and 25, I automatically know that my height is 24 yards. And that's because this is a Pythagorean triple. Okay, now I can still solve for h using my friend Pythagoras, my good friend Pythagoras. I can say h squared plus 7 squared is equal to 25 squared. Okay, if I solve for this, I get h is equal to the square root of 25 squared minus 7 squared. And if you put that into your calculator, you're going to end up getting 24. Okay, so my height is 24 yards. My radius is 7 yards. So I'm going to use my formula, 1/3 times pi r squared times h. All right, so if I do that, I'm going to get that my volume is equal to 1/3 times pi times my radius, which is 7 squared, times my height, which is 24. Now, if you're plugging this into your calculator, I would probably do this. I would do pi times 7 squared is 49, and then times 24, and then all divided by 3. Okay, that's kind of how you may want to plug it into your calculator. But if you plug that in, then you are going to get 1,231.5 yards cubed. Okay, and that's our volume. Make sure you label it with yards cubed. Okay. So you just got to know, the formula, and you got to look at the picture and be able to pick out what those measurements are. Okay, if you can do that, you're going to be fine. Let's take a look at number 4. Now, this is an oblique pyramid. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing that we had. Now, this one, volume is equal to 1/3 times the length times the width times the height. Okay, my height equals 6. My length is equal to 4. And my width is equal to 4, so I'm just going to plug those in. Volume is equal to 6 times 4 times 4, all divided by 3. I plug that in, and I'm going to get 32 feet cubed. All right? So, guys, I've already done this work on the calculator, so I need you guys to, you're responsible for finding that information on the calculator, okay? Let's take a look at number 5. Number 5, we're given all these measurements, okay? I'm given my radius is 6 centimeters. I'm given that my height is equal to 12 centimeters. My formula for volume is 1/3 times pi times our radius squared times our height. So now I just take these numbers and I plug them into my formula. Okay, and I get 1/3 times pi times 6 squared times 12. So our volume is equal to pi times 36 times 12, all divided by 3. If I plug that into the calculator, then you get a volume of 452.4 centimeters cubed. All right. So again, guys, this is just formula work. Okay, you got to be able to take a look at the picture, identify those measurements and what you're looking for. So pyramids and cones, the volumes of them, it's very similar to prisms. It's just that we're dividing those by 3. So. This should be good for your notes for 12.5. Please get started on the 12.5 homework. thank you, and you guys are doing a wonderful job.